Right.
In here is a step-by-step guide on fisting. It is just horrendous. They were holding a twerk workshop for children. These are sex guides, these are not sex education material. I think that's really important for people to understand. There's a significant difference. I like to use the law to create change. I read out volume 1, scene 1 from Sex Criminals, and the mayor literally said, honestly, it was like a gift, "Stop, Michelle, that is so inappropriate." And I said, "But I'm reading from a child's comic that your library is happy to distribute." The response was overwhelming. Hi, I'm Michelle Kinsella from Keeping Children Safe, Albany.
So I'm here in Perth, and we rocked up to a meeting today, and I saw a lady with a shirt that says "Keeping Children Safe," and it's not Albany, Auckland, New Zealand, it's Albany in Perth. So I got a little bit excited because it's always really nice to find other amazing people out there who are standing up for our children and their innocence. So Michelle, tell me a little bit about Keeping Children Safe.
Sure. So my name's Michelle Kinsella, and I'm one of the founders of Keeping Children Safe Albany. I work with my colleague Tamara Freeman, and what happened was she was sacked from our school board for asking very innocent questions, nothing to do with the sexualisation of children or just really questions about policies, and we saw this huge pushback, rang some, alarm bells. She ended up getting sacked from the school board. So we got together and had a good chat, and then we realised that this was actually a lot bigger than what we realised it was. We thought it was just our school board, 1 or 2 problem people. And then we embarked on a campaign raising awareness about the sexualisation of children in society and education. And we decided to, take things to the next level. Instead of just sitting around talking about the problem, we decided to be proactive at doing something about it in our community.
So when was that? When was she sacked from her school board?
It was March, I think, this year. We formed Keeping Children Safe and did our first public talk in May.
Yeah, wow, so May 2024. So sort of 6 months ago.
Yeah,
wow.
It's been a real whirlwind.
Yep. And so what are the key activities that you guys do as a group?
So we held some community meetings just to raise awareness and just gauge the community to see if they shared our concerns about what was going on. The response was overwhelming. We thought we'll just have a little afternoon tea, maybe 20 people will come. We had, I think, 60 people at the first meeting, about 150 at the second meeting. We had to stop people coming in. Then what we did was here in WA, we've got the Local Government Act, and I like to use the law to create change because I'm passionate about politics, so it goes hand in hand. So we use the Local Government Act to get our local council, the City of Albany, to hold what's called a special meeting of electors. During that meeting, you get to present motions and address particular issues. So we discussed the inappropriate books in the library. We discussed the distribution of pornographic comics through the e-book system, which a lot of people are not aware of. And we also discussed the twerk workshop that was held in the Pride Festival earlier this year. I don't know what you would call them. The organisers of the event enlisted a third party, and those dancers, I guess, they were holding a twerk workshop for children in our town hall, which has historical significance. We thought that was not okay, so we also discussed that in our special meeting of electors. What happens here is everybody comes together and you can vote on the motions. Every one of our motions were passed. We had about 420 people turn up at that meeting. And then what happened was the council came back 2 weeks later to announce their findings, and what they decided to do was renege on the motions that were passed by the people. But what did happen was this book here, even though they say they didn't want to carry the motions, inside this book is a step-by-step guide to fisting. There's also a BDSM guidance. These are sex guides, these are not sex education material. I think that's really important for people to understand. There's a significant difference. So this book was removed from the catalogue, which is fantastic, so that was a huge win. This book here, Welcome to Sex. Now, people call this author, it's a issue with me, Yumi Steins. Her name is not Yumi Steins, it is Yummy. On Twitter, her handle is Yummy Child. And in this book, there is sexually graphic pictures that if it was in any other medium under the classification board, it would be an R-rated one. So, for example, there's a picture in here of a hand job. So the erect penis under the classification boards federally would be R-rated, but because it's in a child's book, it's deemed acceptable. After our meeting, this one here actually was in the junior section. So this was in the book section where kindy children can access it. So technically a librarian could read this book to children during story time, talk to them about, how to masturbate, hand jobs. This book also promotes illegal activities. It talks about sexting and sending pornographic pictures. That is the distribution of child pornography, and it is highly illegal. The e-books, everybody needs to be aware of what's happening on the internet. We know about the online porn and everything else, but the soft side of things is the e-book system, and Sex Criminals is the comic that we decided to talk about. It's a pornographic comic. And here in WA, the distribution of pornography to minors is an illegal activity under the criminal code. So we have been to the police on 3 occasions, and we're now at the stage where possibly the police might press charges for the distribution of pornography to minors because it is an illegal offence.
So who are they pressing charges to?
That would be the head of the state library here in WA.
Okay, so because we have this book, Welcome to Sex, in New Zealand as well, and we had a number, because it's an Australian author, is that right? Yeah, so, but it's obviously, gone everywhere where this ideology has come into society. And so we had a number of people put complaints into the classification office in New Zealand to request a reclassification. So make it R18. It wasn't even saying get rid of it altogether. It was like going through the correct legal processes.
Yes.
I think they had over 80 people put a complaint in, and they didn't. They said no, it's actually fine, and it's up to. I think what they were saying was it's up to the parent to decide.
Yep.
Which, the argument of any thinking adult is, when you take children into the children's section of a library, that should be one of the safest places in your community to allow your child to be without mum and dad looking over their shoulder and having to basically watch it. And also, kids go into the library as part of a school group where there isn't one adult to child ratio, and these are available on the shelves. So under the classification, they were making it okay for that to be so. And then when you do more research, and it'll be the same here, the library associations in our countries get their directives from the United Nations, from UNESCO.
Yep.
Right.
We have similar here in Australia, and we have the Australian Library Association. They have come back with basically the exact same thing, that is up to parents to monitor what their children are looking at and seeing in the library. Our classification board here is slightly different, but we've had an amazing win recently. Well, not keeping children safe. We've got a gentleman in Queensland called Bernard Gaynor. Absolutely fantastic. He's had wins in multiple councils about books, not necessarily these ones, addressing other books and ideologies. What he has done is he has taken the classification board to the court here in Australia, and the judgment was that the classification board need to go back and reclassify a particular book called genderqueer. Now, the classification board are not keen on doing that. So what's happening now is going back to court, and we are absolutely hoping and praying that the classification board will be held in contempt of court.
Wow.
And that's going to be massive.
That's huge.
In terms of classification here in Australia, we have unrestricted and restricted. We were advised, once you put in a classification application, they will come back unrestricted, and you cannot do anything after that for another 2 years. So we wanted things to progress in the local council, on the ground, with the libraries, community people going out, raising their concerns, and not have it tied up for those 2 years. But look, I think what's really amazing is we felt quite alone. The response has been overwhelming, unbelievably, so much support, not only boots on the ground, local community, statewide. It's been in the state parliament. We've had politicians going quite crazy over these books, and heated discussions in state parliament, and Senator Malcolm Roberts has taken it to the Senate estimates to ask about this book as well, because here in Australia this one was shortlisted for the Prime Minister's Literary Award. So
unbelievable, isn't
unbelievable.
It? Yeah. So
yeah.
going back to how you started and you were getting the boots on the ground and you were getting people coming to your meetings, I'm fascinated about that, because over in New Zealand, and we're quite similar countries, but it's really hard to get people talking about this topic. Like, they can get fired up about it when we help to inform them, but it's still really hard to get people out the door to come to a meeting. Like, I've done 3 nationwide tours going around the country talking about this stuff, and they're getting bigger, but we get censored on Facebook community groups. We don't have a budget, so we don't do any paid advertising. We literally are relying on word of mouth. So how do you fill your halls and get the boots on the ground?
Yeah, I've been working, I'd say, in the political spectrum for a couple of years. So I do have a little bit of a following, and I was in another community group previously. So we really started with those people. But one of the things that we really did do is we went to the churches. I had a meeting with our local pastors and talked to them about the books and what was happening. And we also, what we did is, I'm all into shock value, because people need to see what's in these books. So we printed flyers with content, and we just asked people, is this okay? Do you think this is okay for children? That really riled people up, because then they're like, what? I don't want my child to see that. Well, you need to come to a meeting, give us your email. We've got a big email database now. But, you know, I speak very, you know, frankly, especially when I go to council, when we had a special meeting of electors, I read out volume 1, scene 1 from Sex Criminals, and the mayor literally said, honestly, it was like a gift, "Stop, Michelle, that is so inappropriate." And I said, but I'm reading from a child's comic that your library is happy to distribute. And the shock value, but we have been censored on Facebook, most definitely. What's been very interesting here in WA is we've got great media coverage, very, very positive.
Mainstream media coverage.
Mainstream media coverage, and that shocked me, because I've not always had that. And we were expecting things to be very, very harsh. Absolutely not. They were borderline neutral, which was fabulous, but what that did was that gave us the big audience.
That's really huge and very different to what's happening in New Zealand. Like, they've only talked about me once in mainstream media, and that was to respond to pseudo complaints, I believe, about us hiring a ratepayer funded venue so that we could invite parents in to speak. So it backfired on them, because they really had no story, but we can't really get into this mainstream media, and then what's happened is some people have been targeted as being really extreme on this, and so they just get nailed in the media and taken to court and all of that. So then people who, you know, because we're quite a fragile society, if you like, of wanting to be nice about it, right? Quite
very fragile.
Is that people just back away because the topic's too hard. So in themselves, a lot of people are like, once they know, they're like, oh, hang on, but they're not willing to put themselves out there and say it. And we just say to them, we need everybody who knows us to be courageous and speak the truth. Let them call you the names. They've only got a little short list of names.
There's only a couple.
Homophobic,
absolutely.
Bigot. And once they've done that, and racist, anti-colonial, white colonial racist, they wrap it all up. And then once you get over the shock of them calling you names when you go, well, I'm actually not, you're just like, oh, there is no depth actually to that. No. That's just part of your mantra. Keep going.
Yep. I find if you take I've been called every name under the sun, definitely. I'm in good company. But I just feel I'm very, very blunt, and some people would say confrontational, passive-aggressive is a term a few politicians use, but
I'll call it assertive.
I like assertive, But the way that I see it is, if you're not prepared to stand up as a human being with a good, strong moral compass to say this is not appropriate for children, if you're not willing to do that, what sort of a person are you? Because if you're not adult enough to say, actually, this isn't okay, I'm not going to let it happen on my watch, and I'm going to help protect children and keep them safe from being sexualised and groomed, what sort of a person are you?
That's right.
And I'm quite upfront. Some of the social media posts have been, you know, oh, if you don't agree with Michelle, she'll call you a groomer. Well, do you know what? You are. And
you're enabling the groomers.
You're enabling the groomers. That is exactly
Opening
right.
a doorway.
And so you're either an enabler for the groomers or you're a child protector. So I find most people then, what's amazing though, is we have had a huge shift in the audience. So when we first started, and I've been running different campaigns over the years, addressing difficult subjects, it was always women. Women. And I would sit there and look out at the audience and think, please, where's the men? I can honestly say our supporter base is about 75% males. And that is absolutely fantastic, because when the men speak up, people tend to listen.
That is huge, and it's something really close to my heart, because we just travelled around the country sharing all the data and information, and when I started doing this, it was the mums that turned up, and the grandmothers, who actually had often challenging situations where their own children wouldn't listen to them, particularly if they were university educated and stuff. So you're a generation removed from being able to protect your grandchildren. But as we travelled around in the 2024 round, more men turned up, mostly, I believe, initially because we were getting targeted, and so we invited them to come and be on security. And so we had groups come, and we had some meetings where 50% of the audience was men. And so I just started saying, thank you, we invite you into the space. And the energy that came from men, when they heard us women say, please come, we need you to stand beside us. To me, that's the change, because once you show dads this stuff, they will not sit on the fence any longer.
Absolutely. That is so good to hear. And I agree with you with the energy. You know, we're very protective and we're quite staunch and we're strong women. But when the men come and join us and stand beside us, I agree, the whole energy changes. When we had our special meeting of electors, the LGBTQIA plus community decided that I was being anti them as opposed to anti the sexualisation of children. It created quite a bit of conflict there, and things did get heated in our community. We sent them a letter inviting them to join us to help protect children. There was no answer from that letter, but we extended the invitation. But what happened was, on the special meeting of electors, a large group of people were waiting outside. I had already been assaulted earlier in the meeting. There's a court case about that. When we went to leave, these men came up to me and said, just wait, Michelle, we're going to walk you to your car. And I had this beautiful group of 5-6 men, ex-prison guards, ex-police, Christian men, non-Christian men, surround myself and Tamara and escort us to the car. And I think out of all the campaigns and the journeys I've been on, that was a real moment where I thought, we're going to win this war. We're going to win it. We've got a complete army.
That's right. We've had those experiences as well, and you sort of get to the end of a meeting and it's been a long night, and you're sort of, you know, everyone wants to talk to you and stuff like that, and then suddenly you realise that there's a few men just standing quietly waiting for you, and then they walk you to your car. And like, to me, this is the return of the balance of the feminine and the masculine. We're okay about being up front, like we're okay about doing this. We need the men to come, and they are, and it's really exciting. So honours to the men who do show up.
Absolutely.
And do you know what? We actually need the kids to see that. The kids need to see that the dads are going to stand in the gap, and you know, we need to role model what men, what their role is to protect and be the guardians, so that our young men can grow up to be like that. So
absolutely beautiful.
It's amazing to meet you.
Thank you.
To know that the same work is going on, and let's stay connected.
I do want to say publicly, if you'd like to invite me to New Zealand, I would be happy to come over and do some events with you. That would be absolutely fantastic.
That would be amazing. And I think particularly around the library stuff, because we know it's going on, the strategic work, working with people at all different levels. And ditto, if you want me to come over here again, you know, like sharing all of our ideas. We've got all the same data about what's behind this, and we do a lot of stuff where we help parents to ask the questions of school so that they get the material, so that they can see it for themselves.
That's what we're doing.
Don't even trust me and what I'm saying, and I can't say there's a blanket rule about what's going on in every school, but all you can do is ask, and you've got the right to ask, and then the parents are on their way as far as empowering themselves.
We really work on that, and I work as an advocate. So I actually go in with the parents to meetings when they want to have discussions with their teachers and the principals, and that's been extremely interesting. And here in Australia, and especially WA, parents are often told, oh, you can't, you know, check your child out of that class, it's mandatory, da-da-da-da-da. Absolute nonsense. And I find that a lot of the teachers are really starting to ask questions. I had a teacher contact me recently and he said, I'm not doing the protective behaviours unit. No way, that's not okay.
Yep.
Principal told him it was mandatory. He said, give me the link. The link came to a South Australian website, nothing to do with WA. Guess what? He's not teaching those classes.
That's right.
I think if we just keep having the conversations,
Yep.
keep plugging away, encouraging the men as well to join us, and you are so welcome and needed.
Yep.
We need the men to stand beside us.
Yep.
I feel very confident about where the future's heading, and the more people that are speaking out, standing up, and thank you for what you're doing as well, because it's not easy.
No.
But yeah, it's amazing. And it was nice to meet you today too.
Yeah, it was really cool to meet you.
When you leant over, I was like, oh my gosh, she looks like a kindred spirit.
Yeah, we find ourselves.
Yeah, we
it's been
do.
a pretty cool time finding
Yeah.
others, and it's really empowering to have these conversations, to know
Absolutely.
we're not alone.
We're not
internationally.
alone. There is a lot of us. We're the majority.
Yeah, we are.
And
we just lost our voice.
Yep.
We lost our way, and now we're finding it.
We are
So
finding
thank you,
it.
Michelle.
Thank you.
Yay. Yeah, so great.